Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Alrighty, hello everybody, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're calling in. Thank you for joining us for today's EPI Business Development webinar on the 4 key metrics to double your business, presented by Brooke Norman. First off, my name is Drew English. I'm the program coordinator here at the Exit Planning Institute. And like I said, I'm joined today by our presenter, Brooke Norman, who is our Vice President of Marketing here at the Exit Planning Institute as well. A few housekeeping notes before I turn it over to Brooke today. First being the webinar will be recorded today. I will send the recording out later, so look for an email from myself with the downloadable link for the recording. Number two, we encourage questions and interaction throughout the webinar call. If you have questions or comments that you want to ask or interject, there's a questions box on the drop-down menu of your GoToWebinar panel. We ask that you type in those questions there, and then I can moderate those over to Brooke throughout the presentation today. But with that, I'll go ahead and just turn it over to Brooke. We'll get going in today's business development webinar on the 4 key metrics to double your business. So Brooke, it's all yours.
Thank you, Drew. And thank you everyone for joining us for this, our monthly business development webinar. My name is Brooke Norman. As Drew mentioned, I work as the Vice President of Marketing for Snyder Premier Growth Companies and the Exit Planning Institute. I primarily, if I were to sum it up in one sentence, is I help CEOs and advisors develop marketing strategies that produce top-line revenue results. One of the things that we've done in creating this webinar series is we host 12 different sessions to help strategic and growth-minded advisors and owners like you create strategies that can be proven and validated with data that help you be able to look at your marketing and business development efforts as an investment versus an expense. You're all incredibly talented with client delivery. You guys are incredibly skilled experts with a very unique offering in the marketplace. And what we try to do on this broadcast every month is to give you actionable tips, strategies, and insights to help your time and money spent in your business development and marketing efforts be more effective and give you the assurance that it is producing the result you set out to do. Now that said, this month's topic is particularly popular in our community because it basically breaks down all the fluffy, pretty marketing efforts and all the coffee time spent and all the money spent and boils down to the 4 deliberate things that marketing can do to double a business. Now, one of the things I like to ask right out the gate so that we can understand exactly how we've come to be at this point is that you're likely on here and you currently probably have at least 1 client, which is important to understand because we're not talking about necessarily going from 0 to 1, which is a very different challenge. To do a startup is a very different challenge. What we're talking about is taking your current performance rate and improving it. And how do you do that? And that's what we'll break down these 4 areas that literally can take you from where you sit today to doubling your company, tripling your company, or 10xing your company, and how you can manage and monitor what investment that will take and be sure that it's producing the result that you want. So we have about 45 minutes together. One of the things that Drew said, and I'd like to emphasize, is that if you do have questions throughout the duration of this broadcast, please feel encouraged to submit those right away. We will address them at different touch points, and so we'll definitely try to get to all of them throughout the duration of the broadcast. If we're unable, don't worry. I will certainly take the questions offline, and then we'll send you individual email responses to your questions if we don't get a chance to get to them. So by all means, this time is for you. This is your opportunity once a month for us to help you refine your marketing strategy, so please take advantage of it in any way you'd like to. Now moving in, before we go into the depth of this topic, I like to reinforce to our audience every month that there are uniform truths, regardless of industry, regardless of product being sold, regardless of who your client is, that are universally true of effective marketing plans of the future. And these 4 components are critically important as you think about what it is you're spending your time and money on in order to win new business. The first is that the best marketing plans of the future have a strategy. that there's no more, we'll send an email and maybe we'll go have this cup of coffee and we'll go to this networking event, and it's all a bunch of scattered different things that we're doing, but there's no cohesion, there's no drip, there's no lead enters here, and this is the path that we take them on, and this is how it is when they become a client, and this is how this continues. Now, the most effective marketing strategies do have a deliberate customer strategy that embraces everything from point of entry through lifetime value of the client. The second critical component of effective marketing strategies are that they are relationship focused. This is always a positive thing, I think, for advisors. One of the things that you all do very well, especially the CEPAs on this broadcast, is you're very good at cultivating relationships. One of the things that you want to start to try to digitize and start to try to affect your marketing is that it be more focused on the relationship between client and company versus using your marketing to tout you're the best or tout your prowess or how you're better than your competition. Your marketing is an opportunity to develop a relationship with the client before you ever do business together, which means that your marketing should more so be about the client and less so about yourself. An easy way to look at that is your marketing should communicate what it is the client wants and how what you do drives a result they're currently interested in versus talking about how you do what you do. Number 3, marketing strategies of the future need to be data-driven. In this day and age, data is our ally. And it is not something to say, hey, if you are into data, use it. If you're not, don't. The reality is a lot of time and money is wasted on strategies that are ineffective because we're unwilling to look at the data that points to whether we were right or wrong in making our assumptions. The fact that we have data at our fingertips like we do in our marketing gives us the opportunity to utilize one of the things we learned early on in school, which is the scientific method. We think something, we try something, and the only way we lose is if we learn nothing. Data gives us the opportunity to understand if our strategies, if our tactics are effective. And number 4, storytelling. One of the things that is critical about the component of storytelling is that it is how humans learn. That if I were to come on this broadcast and recite a bunch of data to you or recite a bunch of formulas to help you double your business, you would be less likely to remember all the intricate details of that, but you'd be more likely to remember a story I tell you of how it affected someone or how it was used, and that has real characters and real triumphs. And so one of the things that you want to start using in your marketing is telling less how, the exit planning process is and more how this owner experienced these types of things, had this type of business and produced this result, because the story of that owner will be more compelling than the factual information that you're sharing. And so knowing that and knowing that we revisit these concepts every month, I like to think that you leave this webinar and go back to your website and the marketing emails you're sending out and even the printed collateral you have or whatever other assets you have at your fingertips. And you look at it and you think, where does this fit in the strategy? Is this asset that I'm looking at focused more on the client and less on us? Do I have a way to know if this piece I'm looking at is effective? If so, what are the KPIs and how can I glean that data? And number 4, is this piece telling a story or is it just sharing facts? And that becomes a very easy, check and balance for every single thing that you do related to your business development to understand if it meets these 4 criteria, it's probably a piece on track. If it doesn't, it's a good opportunity to go back and rework it a little bit. And with that, our goal is always in marketing and business development to attract the right people to our firm, to adopt effective strategies that can be validated, strategies that don't just save you money, that return your investment to a number that you feel comfortable with. One of the things I try to train marketing professionals on when we hold workshops is how to actually spend marketing dollars effectively so that they can be looked at as an investment. If you as an advisor or employer marketing person, you walk into their office and say, hey, I want $100,000 dollars of business this year, or I want $1 million of new business this year. A marketing professional should very effectively be able to tell you how much that would cost so that you know, okay, if I want $1 million worth of business, I'm going to have to spend $100,000 to get it. If I said to you, give me $100,000 and I'll give you back $1 million, that would be a no-brainer, especially if we were talking about one annual year. So our goal is to start to be able to feel confident that we can develop these strategies that can be validated with performance metrics that mean cash money. And then third, we want to be able to tie those business results to improve the performance. So we want to always be looking at how it's trending and what's working and do more of what's working and abandon things that aren't helping. So these are the points that we focus on in the business development webinar series. Now, I believe that every person understands the concept of the sales funnel. Now, interestingly, a funnel is a trigger, meaning that it's something that needs almost no explanation because we understand how it works. A funnel is shaped in a downward V, more at the top, less at the bottom. Pretty straightforward. Now, how we look at this in very rough cut is like, okay, all these people who don't know us come through the top, and by the time they make it down to the bottom, that's where we win the business, and there's stuff that goes on in the in-between. Now, a marketing person might break it down this way, and this is how we train our marketing professionals to operate. If we're looking at the funnel and we're looking at this as a marketing strategy, there are basically 4 key metrics that interact with a funnel all the way from inception to business one that operates this way. One is traffic. At the top, traffic means anyone new who will become aware of your brand due to tactics and strategies you use. So at the top, you're trying to use traffic to bring new people to be aware of you. The second metric would be leads. So now that there's new people aware of you, how many of those people are becoming leads? How many of the traffic, which is the bigger number, become a lead that then you can identify that this person not only is aware of me, but they are a prospect for my proposition and they have buying power. Third is conversion, selling. So of the biggest number traffic, some become leads. Of that next biggest number leads, some of those people become clients. And that's your conversion. Last metric, price. It's actually one of the most underestimated or unmanaged components in a marketing program is price. In fact, too often price is one of these things where we just kind of lick our finger and hold it up in the air. Say, yeah, we should probably just price it at this. My billable hour's worth this, so I don't know, so we should probably take what I think I'm worth and add 10%, and that's what it's worth. Very few folks in their marketing programs actually go through the diligence of understanding who is the company we lose the most business to, why do we lose it from them, what do they charge, and where should our price be within relativity to our biggest direct competitors, and then determine a price based on that. So those are the 4 areas that basically intertwine or run in concert with just the standard funnel exercise. What that means for you on this broadcast today is, if you were to walk into your marketing professional's office, or say you do your own marketing, and say, okay, I want to double my company, because currently I have at least 1 client, which means I'm doing something right. I had traffic, whether I know what that number is or not. I captured leads, whether I know what that number is or not, but I know that I converted 1 person to become a client, which means I'm performing at a rate. So if I want to double my company, then what I need to basically do is either double traffic, double leads, double conversion, AKA sell better, or frankly, double my price. Now, that's not what I'm recommending necessarily, that you come off this broadcast and you're like, hey, perfect, my solution to double my company is double my price. Great, great plan. That said, is what I will say is that a combination of these things are the difference between performing at the rate you're performing today and performing twice as well, or 5 times as well, or 10 times as well. One of the big issues when working on your own marketing or working with marketing professionals is there's not clear communication on what we're going to do and what it's going to produce. It feels too harsh to say, okay, we're going to go to this trade show, we're going to meet some owners, and then those owners are going to be like, great, where do I sign? I'm going to pay you $10,000 or $20,000 for a triggering event. Or yeah, do I just fill out this form and then I have a $5,000 monthly engagement? That doesn't feel that organic, I'm sure, and it doesn't feel like a realistic statistic. And yet we do feel like trade shows are effective. So then what's the disconnect? The disconnect is this, is that certain things that you do should be measured by how much traffic they produce, not how much revenue they generate. Though if you know at what point they enter the funnel, you start to know, okay, we need this much traffic to produce this many leads to close at this conversion rate. And if we're charging this, we know that it will produce the right amount, which starts to make you understand, okay, yes, I will go to that trade show and I need it to produce this much traffic because I know if I continue to perform the same in every single other environment, it will produce the result that I want. So now what I'm going to break down for you is how these metrics can be adjusted or focused on so that you can double your current performance rate. So the first area we'll look at is this. If you want to double your business, first thing you could do is double your traffic. This is a model actually pulled from an actual business that I work on. So if you look here, our starting point is here in the second column. If you see the first column, what we've got broken down is we've got the buckets, traffic, leads, conversion, price, revenue is our total of what we're earning, and this is looking at it on a monthly basis. So we'll say, okay, yes, we want to double our business. So now what we want to do is go from having 5,000 people visiting or 5,000 unique visitors on our website a month to having 10,000 unique visitors a month. Leads stay the same. We're going to capture the same amount of leads because we currently capture 2%. Conversion is going to stay the same. We're still going to sell at the same rate, and our price is going to stay the same. Well, just by doubling our traffic, we go from $144,000 to $288,000. That all seems simple, but I'll tell you, the math is that simple. If you give a budget to a marketing person and say, hey, here's your marketing budget and here's how much revenue we're going to produce, the challenge is on them to say, okay, how are we going to get there? Are we going to increase our traffic? Okay, to the tune of what? Because it needs to produce an actual revenue number. And this is the way I've trained CEOs, marketing professionals, and advisors to manage their marketing programs so they can have very clear back of the napkin ways to understand if their dollars spent are performing. So that seems pretty straightforward. Let's double our traffic. Well, how do we do that? Well, I broke down 3 different ways that we help advisors focus on growing that number when we help with coaching and training on marketing efforts. One simple and underestimated area is PR and media. Now, this isn't just specifically or exclusively, write a really sophisticated article, submit it to a journal, submit it to, the business journal in your area, hope it gets picked up, and then this is a function that will double your traffic. There are literally functions in PR and media that are at your fingertips for use that you can use without being an established or esteemed writer that has natural pickup. One is press releases. Press releases right now are a digital asset in your marketing toolkit where you can release new information that has your keywords that are embedded on your site and that backlinks to your site. So as this is distributed across channels all over the wire, what that actually means is it's distributed to the internet. And the internet has an algorithm that can then read your keywords, how interactive your content is, and the backlinks of where it leads. The more times that's distributed through the internet, the more findable your site is. And I do know that a lot of folks say, hey, I don't get business from the internet. But I'm going to tell you right now, the fastest growing demographic on Twitter is baby boomers. And 1 in 3 marriages happen online. So if you believe that your services are so niche and so unique and so personal that a person wouldn't Google you, then you are frankly ignoring the fact that we are all comfortable now with the internet. In fact, we trust the internet. We trust the internet to give us the option to learn what we want to learn on our own terms. And so using it to your advantage to make sure your website is very findable is your advantage. So what's nice about PR and media is you can set up a strategy where you send out press releases and you purchase article space on a publication, or you share articles, even something as simple as on your blog, and have it distributed to different publications on the internet, so that the more times that your website link exists in the internet and the more time people can find it back to your website, the more times your website will be found based on the algorithm of SEO crawlers or search engine optimization crawlers. A second function of traffic that can help you get from 5,000 to 10,000 or whatever number you're at today, 10,000, would be sponsored events. A good example is trade shows. Trade shows, while they look like a big line item on your budget tend to be one of the more effective things you do if you actually look at return on investment percentages and cost per lead to acquire the lead in the first place. What's nice about sponsored events as well is that you get that face-to-face component that I do know is where you are all strong. What's nice about that is there's also remarkably detailed organizations that have events that you can sponsor. Kid you not, there is literally a graphic product identification association for business owners who own this very specific type of machine that produces imprints on like manufacturing equipment. And so it's the graphic product identification association that has thousands of owners who have this niche business space, and they meet 3 times a year for a conference that can be sponsored by an advisor or a provider who could come into the event and have a specific pitch for these folks. If you're not already identifying who is my client and where are their watering holes, then you're really losing this opportunity to use sponsored events to your advantage. Another thing in sponsored events is something as simple as Vistage. Vistage has an annual conference that allows for outside sponsors. Vistage also allows advisors to sponsor individual events. There's also, frankly, if you think about where owners hang out, there's sponsored charities. There's sponsored golf outings. There's even sponsored educational events, things that we do at the Exit Planning Institute, like owners forums, state of owner readiness survey release events. There's all kinds of things. If you identify, I know that the owners I'm trying to attract to my proposition exist in this watering hole. If there's an opportunity for you to basically buy your space to be part of that community, it is definitely a function of traffic because it gives you a chance to have people who don't know you now know you later and become part of the top of your funnel. Lastly, on the traffic that we're going to cover today is social media. Now, I'm glad everyone's on mute because it's always a big groan when we talk about social media in our marketing training. And I understand. Social media feels like I'm saying, go like some cat videos or some crappy post that someone put online that you feel like, okay, if I like this, or I guess I'm supposed to be buddies on the internet, and if I waste enough time on social media, apparently it's supposed to help me get business. And that is not what I'm saying. In fact, I am one of the biggest proponents that social media time wasting is actually a huge issue with marketing. To sit here and say we have a social media marketing specialist who just goes around and messes around on the internet, I do not believe that is a great best practice. But what I do believe is this: social media happens to be the most rewarded platforms on the internet when it comes to search engine optimization, which means that if you have engaging, interactive content on your social media platforms, your website will be found before your competitors. So it's a decision to not do social media because it means that when a person starts searching, say, exit planning or wealth management strategies, and there is a shop that's doing social media and a shop that isn't, that on Google, the one that is more likely to be found than you. A really good example of this is Justin Goodbread. Now, not that I'm encouraging you guys to leave this broadcast and go start doing something else, but if you have a second screen and you want to pull up Google, I want you to type in 2 words: financially simple. 2 simple words that this SEPA does not own. And if you type in financially simple, what you will immediately find is that the first 10 search results for these 2 very commonly searched words belong to a man named Justin Goodbread. He is a financial planner, he is a SEPA, he is a growth officer, and all the way down the entire first page of results are Justin Goodbread. They're not a bigger brand, they're not Forbes, they're not Wall Street. These 2 words are Justin's LinkedIn, Justin's Facebook, Justin's blog, Justin's personal website. And then it's actually an article he wrote for Wall Street Journal and an article he wrote for Forbes Finance Council. Now, why is that? None of this stuff is there because he sponsored it. All of this was done organically, which means that he made a deliberate effort in his traffic marketing tactics to basically create content on his website that he would push out through social media platforms. You basically reshare, do it once and share it 10 times. In doing that, the internet provides him so much reward in the algorithm that when a person types something as basic as financially simple, Or if you think about what a person would actually Google, which is simple financial strategies, that Justin Goodbread is more likely to be found, which means his traffic is more likely to increase. Now, we could go deeper into the rabbit hole about social media strategies, but the point I'm trying to help you understand is that these are 3 functions of traffic that if you come off of this webinar and you think, okay, I'm going to take Brooke's advice, we're going to go double our traffic, that these are 3 great areas to be able to very straightforwardly make those efforts and quantify your results and say, okay, we spent the time, we spent the money, did our traffic go up? And that these would be good areas to start that process. But let's look at something else. Let's say we are satisfied with our traffic. We're like, hey, you know, Brooke, we feel like 5,000 is a good number. Now, take into consideration that 5,000 is the number I'm working with. I'm not sure that you know what your traffic is, but you should have a pretty exact understanding of how many new people are exposed to you every month. So if you don't know that number, I would encourage you to shoot an email to your marketing person or walk into their office and say, hey, I want you to start delivering me every month how much traffic we're getting. So let's say we're happy with our traffic. Well, the next area that would be logical to affect would be leads. So if we're capturing right now of the 5,000 people that are exposed to us, we're currently capturing 100 of them. And we're like, that's not enough. We should be capturing more than 100 of the people exposed to us. Well, a very simple thing would be, okay, let's increase that to 200. This many people are coming in, we want to capture more of them. That's a very valid and very, there's quite a few quick fixes you can do to basically make it so that the traffic you're gaining, that you're spending money and time driving to your site or driving to make the phone ring, are actually being captured. And some of those things are something as simple as this. One of them is email marketing. So you have a certain amount of leads that you're capturing, and how are you continuing to communicate with them, and how are you continuing to have them fall up on your radar as nurtured leads for contact? One of the things I'll say is that email marketing does get kind of a bad rap in the advisory community because we literally work in our inbox. What's unique about advisors is we literally open our inbox to work. Part of our job is doing emails. And so when we get a bunch of really salesy marketing emails, it's actually very frustrating and obnoxious because we're here to do work. We're not here to have people, you know, bombarding us with sales propositions. That said, email marketing to date is still the highest return on investment across all industries because it is being sent directly to a watering hole. A way to reframe it so that your email marketing is better received is to keep your email broadcast sent very focused on something that the client cares about today. I can tell you right now that one of your least effective emails you could send would be, hey, did you know I do exit planning? You should do exit planning because if you don't do exit planning, you will likely be one of the 8 businesses that don't successfully transition. Respond to this email if you want to talk about doing exit planning. That is certainly not, that's a very easy way to get yourself blacklisted or marked as spam. What might be a more effective strategy to use email marketing to identify new leads inside your database would be this: sending out an email that invites a person to a webinar about the 5 things owners like you are doing to attract, cultivate, and retain key talent. And it's a webinar series about how business owners drive value into their business. Your firm could put it on, send an invitation out to these folks and see how many people register for that webinar, attend the webinar, and then want to learn more. And what I'll tell you is one of the things that advisors say to me a lot is, hey, Brooke, we're not a talent acquisition specialty firm. We're a wealth management firm or we're a CPA firm. And what I'll tell you is this: it doesn't matter if you personally know the answers to all their questions. What matters is that you become a source of good information, that you know a guy, that you have given enough thought to what an owner cares about today to be like, when I need to know something, when I'm Mr. Business Owner and I need to know something, that I know I can trust this firm to have the answer for me. And so at the end of the day, what you want to do is send emails out that give people substantive content that they care about. And in doing that, not only are your emails not spam, they are literally valuable to the person today. So when they go to actually make serious business decisions, your firm is top of mind. So a way to actually also increase traffic to lead conversion is to embed lead magnets. Now, this is a term we use that means to take valuable content or assets that you're willing to give away for free as a part of your marketing strategy, and you hide them behind gated fields, which would be, an example would be this. We've probably all experienced this. Here's a white paper, you download it. It's going to be the 10 mindset shifts that every advisor needs to make to continue to thrive in a transitioning business owner community. And you see that white paper and you think, I want that white paper. So you click on it and you go to read it and it says, hey, before that, I need you to put your name, your last name, your email address, and your discipline. And once you do that, click submit, it takes you to the white paper. That right there is a lead magnet. It causes a person that came through as traffic to then require to give information so that you now know who they are before you give them something valuable. Lead magnets come in a bunch of different forms, but that's a pretty common one. A webinar is even a lead magnet. So like we just talked about in the email marketing, you could invite to a webinar. Before they come on the webinar, it requires them put their name, their last name, and their email address. So now you're able to go from how much traffic did I attract to how many people are interacting with lead magnets so we know who they are. Referrals is a huge lead tactic. I would say that most of us, if not all of us, I'll just ask you all right now, click the hand raise button if you consider referrals to be your highest lead source in your client book today. Excellent. Yeah, so in looking at it, it looks like 95% of you believe referrals to be your number one. And I'll tell you that's true across many industries. That people really trust the recommendation of another person. And that might be another client, it might be one of your COIs, but point being is that referrals are a huge way to bypass traffic and go straight to the lead part of the funnel. What is interesting though, and as a person who's a very big believer in time spent means worth monitoring metrics, is that if you're getting the most from referrals, what would be good to know is how much time are you spending with these referral sources and what are you doing that's working? If you stop right now and think, okay, the majority of my business comes from referrals. Who are my top 5 lead sources for referrals? And in most cases, you're probably talking about people. So, okay, of those 5 people who send me the majority of my business, what do I do with them that seems to be working? So let's say that one of my big lead sources is Hal. And I'm like, okay, Hal sends me a huge portion of my client book. So Hal and I play golf like once a quarter. Hal and I have coffee once a month. We exchange certain kinds of emails. I have a certain level of response time to things from Hal. And you start to realize that if you were to look at your top 5 lead sources, chances are you treat them a specific way or you have specific tactics you use to cultivate that relationship. What's cool about knowing that is then how do you scale that out to more people who could become part of the top 5 referral network? And that's a very easy way or an effective way to increase your lead capture in your most fulfilling lead source tube to date. Last bullet on here is retargeting, which is a pretty advanced marketing strategy for small businesses, which is basically the thing that happens to us sometimes and we think it's kind of spooky, where we visit a website once and then when we're out on the internet doing other things, that company's ads start popping up on Wall Street Journal, or they pop up on our social media, or they pop up on Google. And what that's called is retargeting. There's been cookies placed on a person's website that then starts tracking you around the internet to try to get you to come back and fill out a lead form or fill out something that captures your information. Retargeting is typically for advanced strategies once you're to that level where you're trying to basically, the traffic that you get, you're trying to keep. Now we can talk about obviously moving one area by double or moving another area by double. But the real trick is to write a strategy and execute a strategy that moves 2 or more needles at once. This is a perfect example. In both of those instances, when we talked about doubling our traffic and doubling our leads, we resulted in the same number. It was basically 144 times 2. So it doesn't matter where you double, it did the same thing. But what's positive and what you should be after in your marketing strategy is where you have incremental change or in multiple areas so that you can have exponential growth. So you can see here, rather than just saying, okay, we'll double our traffic. In this instance, we also double our leads. And in that environment, impacting those two areas take us from, $288,000 of new revenue per month at a price of $8,000 to $576,000 just from making those adjustments. Because if you continue to perform at the same rate of conversion and you continue to charge the same price, then you can, just by creating more traffic and more lead capture, create a huge difference in your bottom line. Now, the tactics that will get you there may be complicated, and your messaging may be very refined, and all of those things that are going to go on in that marketing strategy I will give you are complicated. But the math isn't. And if you are not executing your own marketing, your marketing professionals are more than able to produce for you every single month. How much traffic did we get? How many leads did we capture? How much business did we close? How did we convert? And what are we charging? So that you can understand and start to have confidence in, okay, I gave my marketing people $10,000 for a video they wanted to do. And they said that video would increase our traffic. Did it? Or they said that this video would help us with our conversion because they said, oh, our sales guys, they need a video that communicates out, how we work with our clients or what we do for them. And if we had this video, we'd have higher conversion. Well, this is a perfect way to understand you made a large capital investment in a marketing effort. Did it produce the results that we want? And are we satisfied with what it did produce? Or was the work done off? What this management tool or what this communication table does is it gives you a chance to understand where the funnel is broken. Are we broken at the top where the efforts we're making are not increasing the traffic and that's what they were supposed to do? Okay, let's fix it. Or we did the thing it was supposed to do, but we are losing them when we move from traffic to leads. We're losing them. We have a huge leak there in our funnel. We need to change it. Or, wow, traffic and leads are performing incredibly, but we can't close. That's a very specific issue, which then instead of spending more money driving more traffic, maybe you need to send everyone to sales training. So what's nice about this is also that when you get down to, okay, we're closing at such a high rate that maybe we're not charging enough. It's too easy of a sell, which means that if you're closing, let's say you're closing at 50%, all of your areas are converting. You're hitting your traffic goal, you're hitting your lead goal. You are so far exceeding your conversion goal that maybe what you need to start doing is, because you have such a slick proposition that's very easy to understand, that's very easy to see value, is maybe it's also worth $100 more an hour. Or maybe it's worth $50 more an hour. Whatever that number is I don't want you guys to underestimate the ability for price to affect your growth numbers. So the big question I have for all of you as we round out this presentation is, do you currently have an assigned budget for each of those 4 areas? If you do, I'd like you to just raise your hand in the box. And if not, what I will say is this, that there is an opportunity for you to start looking at your efforts and saying, okay, I'm going to spend $50,000 this year, or $100,000, or $10,000 this year. And when I spend 10, I should deliberately know, okay, am I trying to increase my traffic? Am I trying to produce more leads? Or am I trying to be a better salesman? What is it that you're trying to accomplish with that money? Because then with that direction, one, if you're doing your own marketing, it becomes very straightforward to understand starting point and success. 2, if you're entrusting this investment into somebody else, you can then require that they communicate with you in like terms. I'm going to give you this $10,000, and what I'd like in exchange is $100,000 back. How are you going to do it? And that person can say, okay, if I know that I only have $10,000 to work with, I know they want $100,000. Okay, how can I produce the number of leads we need based on how we're currently converting and how many leads we're intaking? What do we need to do, and what are the strategies that fit inside that budget? If you don't have a budget with an expectation of ROI and you haven't looked at everything in 4 easy to understand buckets, you're making your marketing strategy harder than it needs to be, and you're making communication between you and your marketing person in real revenue number terms. Very labored and quite frankly, often impossible. But what's nice is you can come away from this webinar and you guys can stop and say, okay, easy. We're going to understand January through December how we performed in each of these areas. And if it ticks up, that means we're doing something right. It doesn't have to be over dramatized. It doesn't have to be over complicated. The reality is the efforts that will make this marketing engine go can be complicated. The numbers can fit on the back of a napkin. And my other question for you is this, and one of the things that I've done in working with numerous CEOs and advisors across the country and frankly across the world is that you have to know your numbers as a marketing professional. And you want to be able to compare apples to apples. What's hard for people is to say, okay, how did this trade show perform against this sponsored ad on the internet? The two feel like they're just in totally different veins, but the reality is they aren't. They aren't in different veins. They're both functions of traffic, which means they can be compared side by side. So what you need to understand is if you spend this many dollars, which one produces the more advantageous ROI with your time as a consideration? And how much is it costing you to acquire one lead? So you might say, okay, well, the trade show side by side of the sponsored ad, they cost about the same. But one is producing significantly more traffic, but the other one actually is producing leads. So which one is giving the highest ROI of business one, and how much is it costing to acquire a lead? Not a person that visits your website, a person that literally identifies themselves as a ready buyer with spending power. And if you don't know those numbers, please reach out to me because I actually have a spreadsheet that I developed to help calculate return on investment for every spend we ever do. And I'd be happy to share it with you if it's something you would find value in. Just shoot me an email at bnorman@exit-planning-institute.org and we can share some of our models with you. I mean, it's definitely something that has helped refine how we train marketing professionals that join our team and how we help CEOs clean up their numbers in their organizations so that you can have a healthier relationship with your marketing efforts in your marketing department. So as this takeaway, the thing you want to remember is that these functions on the right, this traffic, leads, conversion, and price, are what are channeling your marketing strategy. So just to reiterate, at the top, you want to be marketing in the watering holes where your ideal clients exist. Down the funnel, you want to make sure you have content and magnets that matter to the client today, and you want to make sure you have an ongoing nurture educational process to keep people with your brand top of mind. In the green box, be real with yourself and understand, are we selling at the rate we should be? Do we have competent salespeople in place? Are we converting the opportunities that we win? And then lastly, are you priced right? Don't do finger in the air, which way is the wind blowing, that's what our price is. Have a conclusive understanding as to where you fall in relativity to your competition, and then make a deliberate pricing decision to price exactly what it's worth and make it an easy decision to understand whose proposition is more valuable. We do talk about all of this as if it's so easy. You just, oh, okay, I'll just go double my traffic, or great, I'll just double my leads. But one thing I always like to put in our marketing presentations, because the best marketing strategies start with the client in mind and are built around a person you're trying to attract, is understand who it is that you're talking to. So as you go determine where you will market and what it's supposed to produce, remember that different types of clients are existing in different places and like different things. And so I include this generational breakdown chart, which is a very rough cut from a much larger case study that we teach to at the How to Sell Exit Planning Services workshop, tied to the SEPA program, 6 times a year. This chart, though, breaks down something as simple as a different generation's view on money or their core value. If you were to strip every single thing away from a person, what would they still be? That core value statement. So if you take a chance to look at this chart, what is helpful for you is when you're marketing to different audiences, you would say something different to a baby boomer group than you would to a Gen Xer. You would certainly say something different than you would to a traditionalist or a millennial. And so use this chart, review it, pose questions if you have them to help refine the messaging that's going to take this traffic lead conversion and price strategy to the next level by having very good messaging that speaks exactly to the person you're trying to attract. And at the end of the day, marketing, regardless of industry, regardless of the price of the thing that you're offering, and regardless of who your client is nothing more than getting the right thing in front of the right person at the right time. So understanding who that person is critically important if you're going to do anything in the pursuit of doubling your company. I leave with 2 action items. The first being create a monthly marketing report or request one from your marketing team so that you can, starting next month, say, okay, we performed this way in August and this is how we're performing in September, so that we can start to understand, are we trending up? Are we trending down? Are we staying the same? And answer the question, are we satisfied? So that you can know whether or not this is something you should be spending time on and whether or not your values match your goals. So please, if nothing else, take that small chart and start filling it out each month to help you have a better understanding of how your marketing is performing in real dollars. And action item number 2 is to read the book Contagious. What I'll tell you is that we live by this book here. It talks to you about why some marketing goes viral and some marketing stays right where it sits, because it goes through what makes a message worth sharing. And it goes into a lot of concepts we covered today. So if it's helpful to you, if you're hungry for more information or you'd like to see your marketing perform differently and you need help refining your communication, a very good first step, which is something for every client that we ever take on here when it comes to business development coaching, is taking on this book and reading it and understanding the concepts inside. Now with that, Drew, we've covered the major components of our presentation today. Are there any questions that you'd like me to answer at this time?
Yeah, Brooke, thanks for going through that. We actually had a couple questions that came in, and so I'll just kind of read those off. And if there's any additional questions that you'd like to type in, please go ahead and type those in the question box at this time. So the first question that came in is when you were talking about traffic. Does that just include the website, or does that include website, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the other social media as well?
That's a really good question. So what the short answer is, we use traffic on the website as the biggest indicator of the most people who are exposed to you. And what I will say, though, is that you're right in saying there's multiple platforms where people become exposed to you. What we try to say is this, is if a person determines that they have buying power, or if a person is interested and is thoroughly vetting an opportunity or is curious to know more, they're going to your website. So I would say, yes, you could count your LinkedIn traffic as traffic, but I typically feel like once a person visits your website, it means they are interested in more information about you, the brand, versus you, the individual. And so we use traffic on the website as the biggest indicator of people who are now aware of us and are aware of what we offer and may have buying power, versus people that stay on social media platforms. One thing worth noting on that, though, is if you go on your Google Analytics report, which is free, by the way, if Google Analytics is set up on your website, it is free for you to look at this information. You can go to a traffic report that shows how much traffic in that month came from LinkedIn, or how much traffic on that month came from another social platform, or how many came from a business journal, or frankly, anywhere on the internet. You will be able to tell how much is coming from all these other platforms you're measuring. And I think that that's also a good indicator of what you're doing on those platforms that's working and what isn't. So me personally, to answer your question, if I was your marketing officer, I'd be looking at traffic on my website, and I'd be focused on getting as many people on your LinkedIn to come to your website as possible, because it means they're interested in something more.
Perfect, thank you. And Brooke, another question. What's your thoughts on Facebook ads?
Great question. I happen to believe that Facebook is one of the biggest assets in our arsenal. There are 2 billion people on Facebook. And I'll tell you that if you think like, oh, no, my ideal client's not part of 2 billion people, I would tell you, well, 1, maybe you should choose someone who's in the 2 billion, or 2, they probably are. So one of the great things about Facebook is you can literally refine your search down to something so specific as in their personal interests, their business interests, their age, their exact demographic regionally. You can find out all kinds of information on there when you're targeting your ads. And as long as you're sending out something that matters to them, it is absolutely an effective use of time and resources. The biggest mistake you can make, though, is that assume that because you can find them, that you're ready to communicate with them about something they care about. And I would encourage every advisor to write this next thing down, which is your first marketing message to an owner should be one of two things. It should either address an existing pain they have, or it should show them access to a desire they currently have. The mistake advisors make is they push out sponsored ads on Facebook or LinkedIn or anywhere, and they communicate why you should want what I want you to want. I want you to want wealth management, so you should want it. Here's my ad. Or I want you to want exit planning. That's actually not an effective message, not an effective first message. Your most effective first message is to only address that something you do provides them relief to a pain or access to a desire. And in those terms, I would say absolutely Facebook ads or other social ads are incredibly effective to drive traffic.
Perfect. And then final question that came in, Brooke. Talking about the marketing budget, what percent of revenue should be in the marketing budget?
Okay. Now, depending on the business, you can do a lot with a little. But what I will say is that for businesses under $1 million, typically what I advise folks is to spend at least 8% of your projected revenue. So if you're going to go from $1 million to $1.2 million, you want to do 8% of that. If you're a business of $2.5 million to $5 million, typically go between 8 and 10%. If you're 5 million and above, I typically personally argue for between 12 and 15% of projected revenue. So if, like, say I'm working for a company that's currently 5 million and the owner walks in and says to me, which oddly enough have been in this situation before, I want to take our company to 10 million, then your marketing budget is an investment based on 10 million, not on the existing. So to say we'll do the same amount of marketing, but we'll just produce twice as big of a company is what you're trying to avoid. So you want to basically say, okay, what range am I in? Am I in the 8% range, the 10% range, or the 12 to 15% range? And then how much money do I want? And then it'd be that percentage of your projected revenue, in my opinion.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Brooke. Appreciate you going through those questions. If there's any additional questions out there that you would like to take offline, please feel free to either contact Brooke directly or myself. My email address is denglish@exit-planning-institute.org, or you can call the number on your screen now, the 216-712-4244. Be more than happy to answer any questions or field any questions. But Brooke, is there anything else you would like to add before we conclude today?
No, I think that this has been incredible. I appreciate you guys having such engaging questions. If you'd like to join us for our future broadcast, just visit episeminars.com. That'll show you the hundreds of webinars we have coming up. And I just appreciate it and look forward to having you all on next month.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Brooke. Thank you for everyone for attending. Like I said earlier, the session was recorded, so I will send out the recording later today. And then if there's any additional questions, please feel free to reach out and contact someone here at EPI Global. But with that, we'll get everyone back into their busy days. Brooke, thank you once again. I hope everyone has a good rest of the day and a good rest of the week. Thanks, everybody.